Hello, everyone. My name is Wes Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow morning. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. If you are joining us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Xhanti Mshunqane, a technical accountant at a Big Four bank. He was also an academic trainee at Wits University. Xhanti, thanks so much for joining me today.
Always, thank you so much, and quite impressed. You pronounced it quite correct. It's usually one of those ones you get used to it over time. I mean, growing up, it's one of the things that I knew people were going to butcher my name. So, but you definitely did it quite well. So thanks for that as well.
Try my best.
Yeah.
Try my best. But let's jump straight in. Tell us your story. Where do you come from? And even outside of work, who is Xhanti Mshunqane?
Oh, that's sounds like an interview question, but I'm joking. But yeah, literally. Okay, so I'm from the Eastern Cape. The second of five boys actually. So come from a big family. So I went to school in Queenstown. So one of the famous sort of all boys schools there in Queenstown, Queen's College. I went there, did my grade 1 to 12. Then where I then left, went to Wits, where I studied accounting. So when I studied accounting, the normal program, which is the junior degree, I also was fortunate to do my honors. And then I did my honors in taxation actually. So at the time, I was glad that I just made it into honors. So I just picked one, and then it seemed like tax was I was gravitated towards it at the time. Then I picked it. Then I did a year stint as an academic trainee at the same institution, Wits University. That was in 2019. Also did my master's that year, so I'm quite grateful as well for that opportunity because it's one of the things that they allow you to do there. Then did my 2 year article, 2 years sort of. It's supposed to be 3 years, but obviously you do 1 year at Wits, and then I did 2 years at SNG Grant Thornton, and really there I was mostly in retail, education, dabbled a bit with financial services, but mostly, I'd say retail, automotive. Those are my big clients. And then obviously I qualified as a chartered accountant after the 3 years, did my APC, ITC. Was fortunate again that I passed on the first attempt on both of them. And then I was able to go in and surprisingly, I took sort of like a break. I was like, I don't want to do necessarily auditing. So went to Makosi for a short stint. Then I realized actually, the academic in me, the person I've always been, analytical, researching, was always going to like a role where I'm being challenged to solve problems. And I've always been like that. From school, I was, the guy in the tutorial rooms was debating issues. Why is this right? Why isn't this right? I was also the guy, who during the academic articles years who used to be passionate about explaining concepts. My students still know me to today, the impact I had there. And yeah, so I was so it made sense that I should have really started in a technical role. That then I was fortunate that I got a role within SNG Grant Thornton to do technical role, which was last year. Really enjoyed it. Now I was like, okay, let's try something different. And now, as you've mentioned, at a bank. And yeah, and then for 3 months now, it's been awesome. Love the experience. Wouldn't change it for the world. And really grateful for where I am today and what I've learned. So that's a bit in a nutshell who I am. As a side sort of like hobby, I do mentor, I do advise students. I like to do that. Very into sports, soccer, Manchester United fan, although, the previous weekend, was hiding a bit with that 7-0. But anyway, you support your team regardless. And yeah, also big into entrepreneurship, and that type of thinking and way of doing things and use. Yes, that's Xhanti in a nutshell. Yeah.
You take your shots as a Man United supporter, but don't worry, we all have some. So it's one of those things.
Yeah.
So maybe, I mean, you mentioned it briefly, but what does a technical accountant do? Like, talk to us about your day-to-day work and maybe how it differs throughout the year.
Good question. Good question. So at the core is IFRS. So for those who are, I'm assuming everyone in the program, it's designed and catered towards accountants and future aspiring chartered accountants. So IFRS is basically, quite, it gets a bit challenging and gray at times. So you kind of need us to come in now and again to interpret it, to say, what are we trying to achieve here? So usually, whether it's a bank, whether it's an audit firm or any corporate for that matter, they will be entering into various number of transactions. Now, as the transaction gets executed, someone has to advise on how we should account for those transactions, and really simplify it in a way that we can execute it, whether it's at a finance level or whether at an audit level, to assist the audit team to be able to audit the specific balances. So we provide a sort of a supportive role. So my day-to-day would basically, if I'm not, it would be more ad hoc and structured. So there would be, like queries, like ad hoc queries that I deal with. So which is, should I capitalize this? Should I do this? Those will come in now and again, and you have to deal with it. There would be new products that need to be introduced, and then you have to advise on that. Then there'll be your big opinions where there are contracts that you have to analyze, and you're part of a team. There's a reviewer, So on a day-to-day basis, it would vary between your shorter queries, which is, hey, Kandi, I saw this, what do you think? To more complex transactions that require an opinion, and you write a write-up and someone reviews that and we submit it. So it would really vary depending on the day. Yeah, but mostly at its crux, it's using the IFRS to solve problems, whether it's in a business environment or an audit environment.
Sounds like you're doing something different every day.
Yeah, definitely. That's what excited me about it, actually, is that it's always different. It's always challenging. It's always something new that you're learning. And really, I wake up in the morning. I don't feel like I'm going to work, to be honest. I feel like I'm, you know, being challenged in a good way, and, growing my own abilities. And it's a good career path, I think. Yeah.
Okay, sounds interesting. Let's switch over a little bit to talking about your academic trainee experience,
Yeah.
as well as how it shaped you. So, for those who don't know about what does an academic trainee do?
That's a good question, Ways. So, an academic training. So, the idea behind academic traineeship is that you just recently passed the year before, so you've acquired knowledge, and you're also closer on the ground to the issues more than the lecturers who've passed CTA or third years ago. So the whole concept is that you come in as a former student who's recently passed, so you understand the pressures and how it is like to be on the other side as a student, and you kind of bridge the gap between the student and the lecturer, in the sense that you come in, you're more relatable. So you tend to get queries. So students will come to you for help to explain concepts. They'll come to you, when they're doing tasks and tutorials and all those type of things. And also occasionally they give you the opportunity to do lectures. If you're lucky, you can even mark question papers, which is core as well to your duties, that you mark and you assist with the marking process within the university. And really, it's like taking you through what it would be like to be an academic. So they try to give you a flavor in that year of what it would be like to be an academic, which is to, be able to facilitate tutorials, set questions, mark questions, do research if you take that opportunity. And really, you get to be a junior lecturer, but also, with the whole idea of you're going to be more relatable. Ideally, you will be more relatable than the lectures that are there. So that's in essence what we do. as academic trainees. Yeah.
That's a good explanation. For the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end. So please add your questions to the comment section now so that we make sure we don't miss them. So after your year of being an academic trainee, you fall into your second year of articles, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, articles on its own in a normal 3 years is a big learning curve. How did you find starting like in your second year, where you were already expected to lead others and know how to audit?
West, it was wild, wild west, to be honest. I came in there and they were using jargon that I didn't know. I remember calling my mom and dad like literally the first 2 weeks. And I was like, guys, I literally don't know what these people are talking about. They're talking about programs, and even the GLs they talk about, like they had this other language that was just so foreign. And the thing is, the weird thing is that academic trainees tend to be the smarter sort of like crop or cohort of the student. So you get there and then you with your friends now, and your friends are way smarter than you at that point in time. They know what's happening. So they're looking at you as if, dude, you don't know how to tick this, you don't know how to tick financials, you don't know how to select samples, and you out there saying, whoa, I don't know this. So the first 6 months, I won't lie to you, Ways, it's very challenging. It's very challenging because, as you've correctly mentioned, you're thrown into the deep end, and most audit firms, they've got that sort of a philosophy that these are the smart ones, so they should be able to catch on quickly. And the reality is that, as with anything you do in life, it's like riding a bicycle, right? You don't automatically, be able to ride a bike. You have to fall, so you will fall. And I guess what's important during that sort of first period is to just be humble. Just be humble and say, guys, I'm smart, theoretically, but I really don't know how this thing applies. So what helped me is that I was really humble. I was like, okay, I don't know what's happening here. I asked questions, a lot of questions, and I was also fortunate that I was partnered, paid up, and I thank SNG Grant Thornton for that. They paid me up with someone who was an academic trainee the previous year, so they were a third year. So that also helped in the sense that I was then able to relate experiences, and she was able to give me quite a lot of good advice on how to cope. So the first 6 months, definitely you're going to struggle, you're going to battle, but just embrace it because you're also going to learn a lot. You're also going to learn a lot. After 6 months, I rate it gets better. So you won't be the top performer. Unless you're just from another cloth. There are exceptions, of course. First 6 months, you won't be a top performer. High chance you won't. After 6 months, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. You'll start pulling, your weight here and there. And I guess only for me, I started getting the whole process in my third year, in the beginning of my third year. That's when I was like, okay, I know what's happening now. And really, that's when it comes together nicely, I think, towards halfway through your third year, because you've got the technical now, the practical as well is also there, and it comes together nicely, I think, but only if you give yourself the chance. So yeah, it was an interesting experience, and obviously in your third year, then you start running audits and you learn all those other interesting skills as well. So hopefully I've given you an idea of it, honestly, from my own perspective. Yeah.
No, I appreciate the honesty. Uh, when reflecting on like this journey and on your academic training experience, has it helped you later in your career? And if so, how?
I think it has. Personally, I know it differs from person to person, because there is an argument. Like, for example, if I had started from first year, then perhaps maybe I could have gotten the audit knowledge much quicker. Then, obviously, then you can now start positioning yourself better to say, okay, let me do this, do this, do this, and that. But in a way, I think it works out for me personally in the sense that um, it makes you stand out. And I think in any sort of career environment, I've always had the view that you want to differentiate yourself as best as possible, right? Because at the end of the day, we can all be technically strong, we'll all be qualified chartered accountants. But now the question is, what extra do I have to offer? And that's really where you start getting the jobs that you want to get or the exposure that you want to get. And with having that technical background, and ideally, take advantage of your masters, you get your masters as well, then it should set you up quite nicely, I think, to be a to be someone different in the market. And it's always helpful to be different, in my view. It's always helpful. It's always helpful to be different. Yes, there will be benefits and advantages to it, but overall, I found it was more helpful or did more good. Um, and I'm grateful because even now you can imagine ways we work with, even senior colleagues. We work with them, and they haven't done their masters yet, and it gets quite difficult because you can imagine it's quite demanding the older you get because your responsibilities go up. And but you know that you need that master, especially once you want to enter leadership positions. And so I view academic articles as an investment in the future, right? You probably won't see it immediately, the benefit, but if you look at it as an investment to say one day I want to head up something, or I want to be in a certain environment, I'm making the investment now for something greater tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, no, that definitely helps. And is there a certain type of personality that is more suitable to being an academic trainee? Or if not, like what should that person be good at?
That's a good question as well. You know, with academic trainees, there's always the idea that the smarter people will end up becoming academic trainees. And I almost want to challenge that to say, I think we should have a mixture, in my view, um, of different types of students who've passed within that field. I'll tell you why. Because I think, being smart does not necessarily mean that you're able to relay information well to others. Being able to explain something in itself is a skill. And there are those ones who might not have the academic credentials, um, but they have the ability to explain those concepts. And I think the combination of those who are really smart, and those who are able to explain at a simple, granular level makes the academic cohort. So I would say anyone can become an academic trainee, but when you want to become an academic trainee, don't do it because you think that it's fashionable, or ask yourself, where do I want to go career wise? So, for example, if you're going to be doing advisory work or consultancy work, whether that will be in an efforts technical role like me or elsewhere, doing consulting advisory, it's always helpful to be an academic trainee because what you find there is that you typically do your masters, and you also enhance that problem solving sort of skills, or reputation. It looks good on your CV. So for those type of roles where they really want someone who's cut from another cloth per se, then it's quite good. But if you know that perhaps it's not my route, I don't want to do consulting, or I don't want to see myself in technical roles, or then I mean then there's a question that you need to ask yourself to say, why am I actually then doing this? Because it will be at the detriment not only of myself, but also to those that will rely on me to do the best I can do. Because if you're there and you don't really do the best you can, then you're really wasting a position that could have been filled by someone else who was more passionate, who could have made a bigger input to those students. So I would say, just look at yourself, what you want to achieve in your career, and really align yourself accordingly.
I don't see any questions coming through, so it looks like you've answered all the questions that the audience wants to know. But
Yeah.
this is one question that I like to ask all my guests. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Ooh, good question. I would say to my younger self that, listen, it's not the end of the world. You know, there's always going to be something bigger than what you experiencing at that point in time. We face disappointments a lot of times, like let's say you're writing your test and you don't go well, it feels like the world is going to end, right? It feels like I'm being swallowed alive. But in the bigger scheme of things, if you think about it, no one really looks at those granular details in the long run. People are more focused on what type of value can you add to my organization, or if you go on your own route and you're doing your own thing, what type of problem can you solve there? Because if you are a person who's able to solve problems, via providing a service or something like that, or can alternatively, if you go the employee route, add value in an organization, that's all that matters. So I would say to my younger self, don't beat yourself up over short-term wins and losses. Look at the bigger picture. As long as I'm still in the lane of where I need to go and I'm pushing to get to where I need to be, that's what's important. It doesn't matter who's on the other side, who's listening, whatever. As long as I know where I'm going, that's the only thing that matters. Yeah.
Great advice. Any last few words from you or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
Well, it's always one of those ones. You don't want to not answer the question because they're like, you should have something to say. But no, I think from my side, ways I would say to everyone is that just believe in yourself, and also, invest the time to understand the process. Most of the time we get caught up in the how, on how do I get this done? How do I pause? It's always an end game, in some game. How do I do this? How do I, you know? But I challenge the listeners today to say, just let's introspect and appreciate the process, that wherever you are in life, it could be, in high school, you are doing undergrad, postgrad, at work, working for the first time in a senior position, starting your own business, wherever you are, typically there's a framework or a process that needs to be understood and that needs to be mastered. Invest time in understanding why you're doing things, and how it rolls up into the bigger picture. The understanding of the why becomes critical, not only in the short term, but also in the long term, when you now have to leverage of that information, whether it's writing tests and exams, or whether it's using that knowledge to add value in an organization one day, or start your own business, right? So invest time understanding the why. Ask and seek people who have been there before. I mean, for me, I mean, that was always key. Asking questions to say, this person is doing second year articles, I'm in first year articles, how can they help me? They must have seen something. This person is a qualified chartered accountant, I'm in my third year of articles. Maybe I should ask what it's like. Vice versa, there's always an opportunity to seek help. People are always there to assist and provide advice and guidance. And platforms like these are also quite important, tuning in, listening, immersing yourself. I hope the listeners continue coming on this platform as well, and really engaging with this content and with various speakers, because there's always something to learn. There's no such thing as lost moments or time. So don't regret where you are. You're exactly where you need to be. You know, there's no
That's a
mistake where you are.
that's a great way to end.
Yeah.
The show has been live on YouTube and should be on podcast by tomorrow morning. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Xhanti, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Luis. Thanks.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.
Bye.